In this video, we're going to show you how to detail your engine bay and go from this to this. Let's get to it. This engine bay has never been detailed in more than 25 years, and it shows. It's supposed to have black plastic covers and hoses running to and from the engine and black paint all around. But there's such a thick layer of dirt everywhere that everything has a dull brownish look to it. There's a layer of dirt caked around every inch of every part and every wire. It's literally everywhere. It's so dirty that when you try working on the engine, you pretty much have to take a bath afterwards. Not ideal. Apart from the dirt, there's rusted bolts, brackets, and parts that are an eyesore and make it look like a beat-up engine. The valve cover paint is even peeling off, showing the oxidized aluminum, and the fill caps have lost their shine and black lettering. This is going to be a lot of work, but it's going to be worth it. Before you start, the first thing you need to do is grab your stuff and put it on a table close to where you're working. We're going to use these basic tools and products, which we'll link in the description below. It's best to wear gloves to protect your skin from the oils and chemicals around the engine. To wash off 25 years of dirt, oil, and grease, we're going to use a professional engine cold cleaner, but you can also use water with dish soap in it, as long as it degreases but is not too aggressive for the rubber and plastic parts. Then we're going to use all these different sized brushes and pipe cleaners so we can clean all the hard to reach spots around the engine bay. And of course, we're going to need lots and lots of cheap microfiber towels to clean everything. And to finish everything off, we're going to use a plastic trim restorer for all the rubber and plastic parts and a ceramic spray to give the paint that extra shine. And if your car is as old as ours, you're probably going to have rusted parts as well, like these clamps, the exhaust manifold, and these brackets over here. We're going to use a metal brush to scrape off loose paint and rust before using degreaser and rust reformer to treat and stop the rust. And then we can paint it in heat-resistant or normal paint. All these products are inexpensive yet give great results, so we'll link them in the description so you can easily find them. The next step is to disconnect the car battery to prevent creating a short somewhere in the electrical system. Although the connectors and other components are designed to withstand water splashing, they are old and might not be as waterproof anymore as they once were, so better safe than sorry. To disconnect the car battery, first take off the negative cable so you don't accidentally create a short with your wrench while loosening the positive side. Then loosen it all the way. Take off the bracket if your battery has one and remove the battery. Another advantage is that with the battery removed, we can now easily clean the battery tray and surrounding area. Before using water, you should check if both ends of the spark plug wires are properly connected so no water gets in there, and check for all the connectors you can find if they are secured all the way. And don't forget to check if all the fluid reservoirs are closed properly. You don't want to get water in your power steering fluid, brake fluid, or oil. And be careful your oil dipstick isn't popped up. If water gets in, this could cause serious issues. Now that the preparation phase is done, it's time for the first step, dry cleaning. We prefer using a brush to work the dirt loose and then a vacuum cleaner to suck up all the loose bits. But you can also use a leaf blower to blow away all the loose dirt, or an air compressor with one of these air gun attachments, which makes it really easy to blow in between all the wires and hoses. Let's get to it. You might think that dry cleaning doesn't do much, but as you're about to see, it does more than you would think. Just work the sand and dirt loose with your brush and vacuum it up. It's super easy and effective. And just like that, you can already see a big difference. Now let's do the rest of the engine bay. For difficult to reach spots like these cavities around the air filter, the air compressor and air gun combo work like a charm. Just look at all that dirt fly away. Even armed with only a brush, vacuum cleaner, and air gun, in just a few minutes we managed to transform the engine bay and bring back some of that black color, although there is still a lot of dirt and grease stuck everywhere. Just look at that difference. That's a lot of dirt we don't have to wash off anymore in the next step, which is going to save us a lot of microfiber towels and cleanup. Talking about the next step, before getting too enthusiastic and continuing on the engine, you first need to look up where you'll find the often neglected underside of the hood. And if you don't clean the underside of the hood first, it will drip down on your freshly cleaned engine and ruin your hard work. So don't forget to clean this first. Before washing with water, you should remember that you can wash the engine when it's cold or warm, which makes it easier to remove grease and stuff, but never, ever when it's hot. Because if you do, the temperature difference can crack or damage engine parts. So to make sure the engine isn't too hot, put your hand on top of some metal parts like the valve cover, and if you can hold it without hurting your hand, it's cold enough. Although all the engine parts are used to some splashing from the bottom, we don't want to get too much water from the top on sensitive parts. So it's best to cover the engine with a plastic tarp. When it's nicely covered, make sure the alternator is safely tucked away in there as well. But if you have other sensitive electrical components like the fuse box, the car's computer, or the horns, you might want to use some shower caps to protect these as well. It's cheap, easy, and works great. With everything safely covered, we can finally begin the second step: wet cleaning. Just soak down the underside of the hood with water and then use either the specialized engine cold cleaner or the water with dish soap. We went with water and dish soap to show you that even with simple tools and products, you can get great results. Let the soap do its thing, but don't let it dry. Then work it in and wipe everything off with a microfiber towel and you're done. Just look at that result, before and after. And as you can see, the shower caps did their job and kept everything dry. Before we're going to take the cover off, we're first going to wash around the engine. It's best to divide it in separate areas, starting with one side, moving to the front, and finally doing the other side. This makes it easier to keep track of what you've already cleaned. Start by hosing down the entire area to remove as much loose dirt as possible, but don't use a high-pressure jet setting or a pressure washer. You don't want to force water into the electrical connectors. If your car is as dirty as ours, you can first use cleaning wipes. It absorbs a lot of dirt and loosens up the grease and oils from the engine. Just look at how much dirt still comes off. After giving it a quick wipe down, rinse it off again. Now that we removed all this dirt and grease, it's time to use our specialized engine cleaner. Remember, you don't want to use aggressive products that might degrade the rubber hoses or plastic parts. Spray everything thoroughly with the product and work it in with a brush to loosen dirt and grease that might still be stuck. And for hard-to-reach spaces, you can use your pipe cleaners to clean stuff that otherwise would be extremely difficult to get to. All that dirt is worked loose now, but it's still on there, so we need to rinse it one last time to remove everything. Normally doing this once is enough, but because our engine bay is so dirty and greasy after 25 plus years, we're going to repeat this step. You can repeat any step as many times as you want, depending on how clean you want your engine bay to be. Before moving to the next section, you should first dry the area you just cleaned, because if you wait until the end to dry everything at once, the first area will already be dried up. And while drying, you will always pick up some left behind dirt or notice a spot you missed. And for areas that are hard to reach by hand, you can once again use a pipe cleaner. Just wrap your microfiber towel around it and use it as a handy drying tool. Now just repeat the process for all the other areas. It's super easy. And don't forget to dry the inevitable overspray on the parts you've already cleaned. If your air intake is faced towards an area, you're going to hose down. Put a latex glove over the intake so you don't get water in there. A few drops is fine, but you definitely shouldn't fill it up, depending on how clean you want the end result to be, how dirty your engine bay is, and how difficult it is to reach everything. This cleaning process can range from 5 to 20 minutes per area, but the results are worth it. It's super satisfying to see the colors come back to life. We were so used to seeing it brown and dirty that we didn't even realize how good it could look. you'd be amazed at how much dirt and grease comes off. And the only thing you need is some time and simple products. There's nothing difficult about it. And don't be scared to hose down all those wires and connectors. As long as you don't use a high-pressure jet setting or pressure washer, you'll be fine. They are designed to withstand splashing. You just don't want to test them to the limit by forcing water under lots of pressure in there. And to be safe, it's best to wait at least an hour after wet cleaning before hooking up the battery again so the connectors have time to dry out. Just look at that difference. It's almost starting to look like new again. Who would have thought we had nice black paint under all that dirt? Before we take the cover off and dive into the engine, we first need to clean the sensitive parts all around that we previously covered with shower caps. Don't hose it down with water. Just use the cleaning wipes and engine cleaner so it doesn't get too wet. But as you can see, even without water to rinse everything, you still get amazing results. And a brush is a must-have to reach all the small nooks and crannies around the connectors. Without it, we would have a really hard time getting it clean. And finally, now that everything around the engine is cleaned, it's time to get to the engine itself. After taking the cover off, you can see that apart from a couple of drops from taking the wet plastic off, everything is perfectly dry, exactly like we wanted. Before we can clean the engine, we first have to take off the air filter because as you can see, it takes up a lot of room, making it really difficult to clean underneath there. Just unscrew the clamps and bolts if there are any and take it off. Make sure you cover the air intake with a latex glove so nothing can fall in, because this could have catastrophic consequences. The same goes for any openings leading to the valves. You don't want dirt or debris falling in there, so it's best to close them off. Now, if you have a V-shaped engine, it's best to split the engine in the middle and first do one side and then the other. But because we have a 4-cylinder, we first going to clean the central valve cover and then do one side and then the other. As mentioned before, we're not going to use water to clean the engine itself, so we're going to start by removing as much dirt and grease as possible with cleaning wipes, then work the remaining stuff loose with a brush and engine cold cleaner, and finally wipe everything off with our microfiber towels. We didn't clean the valve cover as thorough as we're going to clean the rest of the engine because we're going to sand and respray it afterwards, so no need to spend too much time on it now. Just look at the difference between the clean side where everything is returned to the original black color and the other side that is still coated in brownish dirt and grease. It's night and day. We're going to repeat the same cleaning process once more, but this side is a lot more challenging to clean because of the fuel rail, the fuel injectors and the carburetor, which make it more difficult to access and clean everything. Just look at that difference, before and after. The other side has the same amazing results, before and after. With the air filter removed from the engine, it's very easy to clean it, so make sure you do this before installing it again. With everything cleaned, make sure to check for spots you might have forgotten, like this spot here, which was right next to the air filter and went unnoticed until now. Just quickly clean it with cleaning wipes and engine cleaner and you're ready for the next step, restoration. Now that everything is clean, it's time to take a look at those rusty parts. Because as you can see, the orange rusted color really sticks out like a sore thumb and ruins the overall look. Just like these brackets over here, and on the other side, we have these clamps we're going to take off and respray as well. And finally, the battery tray is pretty rusted, so we're going to stop the rust before it gets too bad. The first step is to use a metal brush and remove all the loose rust or paint. Next, degrease the surface so the rust reformer can properly bond with the surface and work its magic. Let the rust reformer dry for the indicated amount of time. You'll normally see the rust turn in a darker color, sometimes even black. Repeat this for all the other rusted parts. Apart from the exhaust manifold, as not all rust reformers can withstand such high temperatures, so make sure to first verify this. Also make sure you check the drying time. It can take a couple of hours before you can paint over the rust reformer. The clamps closing the air filter are easily removable, so we're going to take them off to facilitate the process of restoring them. Remember to always properly sand and degrease the surface before applying rust reformer, otherwise it might not be as effective. Always check your specific product. We like this one because we can apply it to hard-to-reach spots with a brush, and after the indicated drying time, you can immediately paint over it. No need to wipe anything off or degrease the surface. But there's even sprayable rust converters that give a perfect black finish that looks like you just spray painted over the rust. So check your specific product's instructions for the best result. Some parts already look good enough for how visible they are or how much more effort it would take to properly paint them, like the brake master cylinder or this bracket. It looks good enough tucked away there thanks to the almost black result, and it would take too much effort to strip and paint it completely, so we're going to leave it as it is. This bracket, on the other hand, still looks awful even after the rust reformer, so we're going to tape everything off and spray paint it. We're going to use zinc spray to keep the color original and protect against rust. Just look at that difference. Before, with rust reformer applied, and after. Looks brand new. We're only going to paint the front part of the exhaust manifold and not the rear, because the rear part is hidden underneath the air filter and between all the other parts, so you won't see it anyway. For areas that are hard to tape off like this exhaust manifold, we like to first start by taping off parts that we really do not want to get overspray on. Then wrap some wrapping paper, latex gloves, or even old rags around other exposed parts and cover everything. It's not a perfect paint job, so we try not to waste too much time here. Remember to use special heat-resistant enamel paint for the exhaust manifold, as this gets too hot for regular paints. Then remove everything again, and you're done. Although it's not perfect, it looks 10 times better than before. And that's what we're aiming for, to improve our engine bay as much as possible with as little effort as possible. That's why we're keeping it simple for all the bolts and brackets that we treated with rust reformer. It stops the rust from spreading, which is our main goal, and if it looks good enough, we're going to leave it. But if they aren't as black as we want them to be, we're simply going to use a paint marker to paint them, because taping everything off for spray painting would be too much work. And if you want to paint small parts with a specific color you have lying around, you can buy one of these small vials with a brush and metal ball in it. By closing it after use, the paint doesn't dry out so you can keep using it, and the little ball allows you to shake and mix the paint again before each use. Just fill the vial with paint and use the brush to apply it. And thanks to this vial, you can use your paint over and over and over again. We'll put a link to this cheap and handy tool in the description below so you can easily find it. After touching up the last bolts and respraying the air filter clamps we previously took off, it's time to do something about the valve cover. Although the paint is still really good on top, we've got this big area that's completely oxidized with the paint flaking off. So we're going to take it off, sand it, and respray it entirely. We'll show you all the steps in detail in a separate video, as well as how to replace the valve cover gasket, so make sure to check it out. We'll put a link to it in the description below. Just look at that difference, before and after. The valve cover looks brand new again. Although these aluminum parts don't look good anymore, they're really hard to restore without removing them because of their shape and position. And even after sanding them, they will turn ugly again pretty quickly because they are uncoated. So we're going to keep that for a future video and keep our focus on detailing, as this would take us too far. And now it's time for the final step, detailing. We're going to start by applying a ceramic spray to the painted areas on the hood and around the engine to give the paint some extra depth. Use one microfiber towel to apply it and another to wipe it off. Make sure you follow the instructions on your specific product. We prefer to spray it on a microfiber towel and wipe it on to avoid overspray on all the other engine parts we do not want to coat. But you can also use spray wax, whichever you prefer. Just wipe the product on and then wipe the excess product back off without letting it dry. Now just repeat the process for the other side and the painted parts in the engine bay. For the next step, we're going to use plastic restore and make this look brand new again. Let's get to it. Now before diving in, always read the warnings and instructions first. For example, this product will stain clothes and should not get wet within 6 hours after applying. So make sure to keep that in mind. And to apply it, shake it well. Apply some to a microfiber sponge and wipe the product on. Let it dry for 1 to 2 minutes and wipe off. That's all there is to it. Just look at that result. A deep black color like it just came out of the factory. Before and after. Now let's do the same for all the other plastic parts and rubber hoses. As you can see, this product really brings back that fresh, new shine to the plastic and gives it a deeper color. The more faded your plastic is, the bigger the difference. The final step of detailing, which can really elevate your engine bay to the next level, is to fix faded lettering. Once again, degrease the surface and then carefully trace the letters with a paint marker. If the lettering is small, be careful the tip is not too wet. So wipe off excess paint on a piece of paper first, otherwise the paint will fill the openings between the letters and you'll have to clean it off and start all over again. Just look at those results, and all we needed was a paint marker and 5 minutes of our time. Now we need to reinstall the air filter clamps and of course the air filter itself. When doing so, we noticed this red wire running behind the engine, but we didn't install it. So after tracing it, it turned out to be a loose wire, presumably used for some accessory by the previous owner. So we're going to remove this as well. While we're at it, we're going to cut away all the unnecessary zip ties and clean up the other red wire that's used for a rodent repeller. Looks much better. The final step is to reinstall the car battery. Remember to first connect the positive side so you don't risk creating a short with your wrench. Then, connect the negative side and you're done. Now you can admire the results. With simple tools and techniques, we managed to transform this dirty, greasy engine bay that hadn't been washed in 25 plus years into an amazing looking one. And now you can too. Before and after. Thanks for watching. If you liked our video, please make sure to like, subscribe, and share. It helps out the channel a lot. And don't forget to hit that bell button so you don't miss any of our uploads. More videos are on the way, so we'll see you on the next one.